All right, now we're into lesson 44, book 3, beginning rock guitar. And this is not a riff, it's not a song, it's a boring uh, lesson on counting rhythms. And who loves to count rhythms? I hope you all love to learn how to count rhythms because it's very important. Um, and what we're doing here is we're counting on three different levels: the quarter note, half note level, and then the eighth note, quarter note level, and then the 16th, eighth note level. And it's the same rhythm. In the quarter note level, we're doing four measures, and then we're doing the same rhythm in the eighth note level, but four measures becomes two measures in the eighth notes, and then from eighth notes to 16th, in the 16th note rhythm, it's just one measure. So, and we're not gonna play them proportional to each other. We're gonna play each of the rhythms at the same speed in the counting. Normally, when you go from quarters to eighth notes, you're going to go twice as fast with the eighth notes, and then twice again as fast from eighth notes to 16ths. But we're going to keep all the counting at the same speed, about like that. Okay? So I'm going to go through all three levels, and you should follow along with the book. And I should have mentioned that we're doing two different sets of rhythms. Like the first page is one rhythm, and then the facing page is a different rhythm, which has some dotted rhythms and a tie. So it's a little offbeat more than the first rhythm. First rhythm is very straightforward. And we're going to play two notes. So it's really boring. Two notes back and forth. We're playing the ninth fret of the third string, which is this E is the same as your open first string, E. And then we're playing first finger on the D seventh fret. So it's third finger on E ninth fret of the third string, and then first finger on seventh fret of the third string. And that's, through both pages. We're just doing those two notes. So, we're keeping it simple with the notes so that you can focus on the counting a little better. But, somebody listening to it, like maybe if your wife or mother is in the other room, they may not enjoy listening to this. So they'll say, could you go on to the next lesson, please? So anyway, here it is. And I'm just going to keep the speed the same throughout the three levels of counting. Okie dokie, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay. And I may have mentioned, like in the quarter note level, you've got in the first measure, I'll just talk through it a little bit. You've got four quarter notes, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have a half note and two quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then two quarters and a half, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have quarter, half, quarter, which is kind of an offbeat rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is four measures in the quarter note level, which becomes two measures in the eighth note level, because you're counting and you've got four eighth notes, 1 and 2, and then a quarter note, two eighth notes, and then two eighth notes and a quarter note, and then eighth, quarter, eighth. So count it again: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that is a little bit offbeat because it's almost like you're tying into the fourth beat. But in this rhythm, you can have a quarter note in place of a tie. So it's like 3 and 4 and. And in the 16th note level, all of this whole rhythm is just one measure. It was 4 measures in the quarter note level, and now it's one measure in the 16th note level. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so they're all beamed as 4 beats. Each beat is beamed all together. So you've got 4 sixteenths, and then an eighth and 2 sixteenths, 2 sixteenths and an eighth, and then 16th, 8th, 16th. Okay, so hopefully that's not too confusing. I'm at the end of this lesson. I'll play through both pages just back to back. Okay. Now I want to go on to the second page with the dotted rhythms, and you've got in the quarter note level quarter notes mixed with dotted half notes, and a dotted half note is going to ring for 3 beats, and the quarter note would be the other beat that out of the 4 beats. So let me just count that. I'm going to go through all 3 levels, the quarter note level, the 8th note level, and the 16th note level. So it's 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and if you notice in the 16th note level, I left out some of the counts. I didn't count in the first beat. You have a dotted eighth and 2 16th. I'm sorry, a dotted eighth and 1 16th, and it's I would just go like 1 and 2 E, and I would count all those counts, and then 3 and 4 E and so sometimes when you're doing a fast speed, which 16ths usually are pretty fast. So if I were doing it more at a 16th note speed, it would be like 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and so you learn to leave out some counts, and it's okay because we're basically bouncing back and forth between 8th notes and 16ths when we're on the 16th note level. On the 8th note level, we're bouncing back and forth between quarter notes and 8th notes, and you could leave out some of those counts. Like you could go like, instead of 1 and 2 and, you could go 1, 2 and 3 and 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So when you have just a quarter note, you could just count the basic beat without the and. But that's a little more advanced. That's when you get into faster speeds where, if you're on a 16th note level, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E. I mean, you could count it like that, but it's a little tedious. So sometimes we'll bounce back and forth between counting 1 and 2 and counting 1 E and a 2 E and a, so on some beats, we might go 1 and a 2 E and 1 and a 2 E and usually if it's 2 E and I'll count the but I mean it's getting complicated here. But so just to talk about this dotted rhythm with the tie, you've got in the quarter note level, it's a dotted half note and a quarter note in the first measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the second measure, you've got the opposite. You've got a quarter note dotted half. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the third and fourth measures, you've got a tie going into the fourth measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, tie, 2, 3, 4. And you would count, when you have a tie, you want to count the part of the tie that you're not playing. Like if I said tie instead of beat one, but you'd go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I counted beat one, which is the tied, the note you're tying to from measure 3 into measure 4. And then on the eighth note level, you have dotted quarter note, eighth note, and then eighth note dotted quarter, and then you have in the second measure quarter note and then 2 eighth notes, but the second eighth note is tied into the third beat. So here's again the count for that: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or on that second measure it's like 1 and 2 and tie and 4 and, so that's where the tie is. And then on the 16th note level, 1 and 2 E and 3 and tie E and or 3 and 4 E and. So hopefully that is not too tedious. Study this video, and you need to have the book and follow along. And it's helpful because often you'll see this a rhythm like in 16th notes, and it looks very complex, and you think, oh, how am I going to count that? You know, but if you break it down, like instead of looking at like an eighth note beam to 2/16, think of that as a half note and 2 quarter notes, and it's much simpler. You can simplify the rhythms just counting them as if they were half notes and quarter notes instead of eighth notes and 16ths. And if that makes sense, then, but you want to get used to seeing rhythms that you commonly had in quarter note level at a 16th note level and not being thrown off by that. So, because often they are the very same rhythms that you've done before, and it just looks different on the page. Because if you're going from a quarter note level where you've got quarter note, half note, quarter, like the fourth measure in the first page, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the eighth note level, it's a single eighth note with a flag, a quarter note, and then another single eighth note with a flag. It almost looks like a shuffle rhythm, but it's not. It's like 3 and 4 and eighth, quarter, eighth. Whereas in the quarter note level, it was quarter, half, quarter. But it's the same rhythm. And if you play them at the same speed, they sound like the same rhythm. So again, I'm going to play first page without, I'm going to count it out loud, but we're going to keep it all the quarter notes. When we go into the eighth notes are going to be the same speed that the quarter notes were, and then the 16ths the same speed. So I'm going to go through both pages, all right, just to recap what we're doing in this boring exercise. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and now on that 16th note level, I didn't leave out any of the counts that time, but hopefully you can hear it's the same rhythm on those three different levels, but the notation looks quite different with the beamed notes in the 8th note level and then the double beamed notes on the 16th note level. But on the 16th note level, you have some single beams and some double beams all in the same beat. So they're all beamed together, 8th notes. Like if you have an 8th note and 2/16, you'll have one primary beam, and then on the 2/16 you have the secondary beam, making the double beams for the 16th notes. I know that sounds complicated just verbally explaining it, but the more you drill counting like that, the better you'll be able to sight read. Now with really good tablature, there should be rhythm with it. It's not just notes to where you're doing it by ear and just winging it. You really should be concerned about how to properly count these rhythms. And that's what this is all about. And this is level 3, still kind of in the beginner stage. When you get into playing lead guitar and you're learning it from tab, often it's on at least an 8th note level, but very often on a 16th note level. And then sometimes you'll have, the last 16th of one beat tied into the first 16th of another beat. And so you have to understand all of that and not be just totally snowed by everything, okay? So that's why this is important as we get into a higher level of counting. And in my rock books, book 3 is the last book. That by the end of book 3, you've learned to count on a higher level to where I can give you a Jimi Hendrix solo and you could take it home without me explaining every detail and just read it at home and then come back and play it for me. And that's with these rhythms, that's what I would want you to do. I'd want you to study it at home and then come back and just play through both pages like I just did, and I'd say, great, that's perfect. Let's go on to the next lesson. Okay, so please like and subscribe and look for John Hedger Guitar Studio on both Instagram and Facebook. All right, take care.